So I'm going to talk about treasures. But first, very one slide, I'm Ruben. I do innovation and digital strategy for a digital agency called eTexture. I'm not going to start with who we are, what we do, etc. That will come in the end. For those of you who are still interested after the first half an hour, you can stay for the last 5 minutes or so about what we do and how we do it and so forth. I'm actually going to start with treasures, with coins. Gold coins, Roman coins. Because this is the real treasure. Sort of the treasures that you find in desolate islands. The treasures that pirates buried, the ones that you read about that are found every once in a while. And this actually happened 2 weeks ago. There was a British couple, and in their spare time they like to go around the countryside and they have their metal detectors and they walk around and they find coins. And last 2 weeks ago they actually found a big treasure. They found £5 million worth of Roman coins, which is extraordinary. I wouldn't see that as my hobby, but fair enough, they have a nice hobby, they're fun, it's a fun thing to do as a couple. And of course, the hidden treasures of today, you could translate that into data. And there's a lot of data. It's expected that we're going up to 44 zettabytes of data in 2020. Anybody can tell me what a zettabyte is? If you've heard of it, you've probably heard about a zettabyte. Yes? I see somebody nodding, yes, okay. So how many zeros is that? Do you know that? No? Okay. I'll let you. To put it in perspective, it's actually a lot of zeros. So we talk about megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes, but then you have petabytes, exabytes, and zettabytes. So 40 zettabytes, that's more bytes than there are stars in the observable universe in 2020. And it's only growing and growing and growing. And it's especially important for businesses, because we are in the midst of a data revolution. I'm not going to dive deeper into what that revolution actually is, because you guys know that. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be here at this conference. It changes the way that businesses improve efficiency, make decisions, schedule time, improve experiences, operations, security, recruit people. All of these things can be influenced by the use of data. So data is extremely important. That's sort of the message you guys get that. Okay. But where to find it? You know, I mean, you can go around and figure out that everything, data is everywhere, because you can go around and like this couple will go with metal detectors and find your data, but every once in a while, something magical happens. And this is also a recent example of this young woman in the United States. She was in a national park with her kid, with her daughter. She was sitting under a tree and her daughter was playing with a friend, and on her iPad she was watching a YouTube video on how to find diamonds. And where she was sitting under that tree, while she was watching that video, she found the biggest diamond found in that national park ever. That's crazy, isn't it? And that's of course a wonderful thing to happen. But how to find treasure? So the same can be said about data. So there's some things happening over there. There's, I think, kitchen people walking around with their plates and the glasses. So we'll wait a second until they're finished. Anyway, so the point, you can actively search for treasure, and you can miraculously find treasure. And the same thing is true for data. You can actively search for data, but you can also miraculously find useful data, valuable data, because that is sort of the differentiator here. I want to highlight a couple of examples of work that we're doing with one of our clients/partners, Mozolf, to highlight who they are, what they do, and our innovation partnerships that we have, and how we utilize data to bring this project forward. So far, any questions? We have a small audience, so we can do this interactive. Let's to fill 45 minutes. Okay. Has any of you found a treasure ever? Like a gold coin? No? Okay. That's a shame. Would have been nice though. Okay, so very, very brief introduction to Mozolf. in a summary. So they, if the clicker works, yeah. So they move cars around. It's very simple, from A to B, from all the way from the factory, the OEMs, to their car storage facilities, using trains and trucks and ships, all the way to the dealers and to the lease partners as well. They also provide a bunch of services. You saw that in the video. They are retrofitting the cars for use for ambulances and police vehicles, etc., etc. But they generate a ton of data while doing this. They have 60 years doing this, and they have been recording their data for a very, very, very long time. And that is actually how it all started with the company that I work for and Mosul, because we were brought in to do some bit of data architecture. Very simply put, moving data from legacy systems to new systems. A few years ago. When was this? It was 2014, 2015, something like that, yeah. And we relatively fast realized that they had a treasure, the gold coins, you see that, of data, and we moved more towards the data consulting field. So we took the data and we started discussing how they could use the data to enhance their day-to-day business, which generated a lot of ideas. And when we had a lot of ideas, we started to figure out and to see that they didn't really have ideation management and how to deal with all of those ideas. So we set up a framework for them that they could manage all of the ideas and bring the ideas together and push them forward and create MVPs and prototypes towards actual products. So the relationship that we have with them grew. And one of these ideas, we realized really quickly that a lot of these ideas had the potential to change the business, to actually come up with new services and new business models and access to new parts of revenue for the company. And we try to instill a mindset of thinking big, start small, but scale really, really fast. And this sort of led to creating a new digital Mosul. When we partnered with Mosul, they had an IT company, like they had an IT team, sorry. And because we had weekly workshops and weekly sessions with them, we started to think about what would it mean for a company to have a real digital team. So we co-shaped the digital team together, so it's eTexture and Mosul. We presented it to the board together, and now we are in their digital team. So that sort of breaks tradition with the normal relationship that you have between a client and an agency, because we're in there together. We are actively part of their digital team. So we're more, you can see the relationship more as a partnership instead of a traditional relationship. And this was sort of the starting point for innovation, and we did a bunch of fantastic projects for them, but one I want to highlight because it's important to this story. This is the Amur platform. It's a platform for Mosul, for dealers, OEMs, and all the individual customers, which has a vehicle strategy. You have KPIs on the dashboard for the people who move the cars. You link together the data between all the different trucks. Essentially, data everywhere. You know, remember this data was everywhere. I mean, we just found it miraculously through the use of that platform. And there was a lot of hidden data as well. We started to realize that what we found was just barely scratching the surface, and there must be a very big iceberg underneath, and especially the value of the data was something that we didn't really anticipate on yet. So we started digging. And that was sort of where the innovation partnership really came to be. Because there were so many potentials in finding the data, that we set up initially some simple guidelines for this partnership. So we did a fixed time frame per experiment. We had ideas about data science, about blockchain, how can we make the data more secure, etc. And when I said 1 month of time, I did not mean 1 month of effort, but like the period of time that we were going to spend on one particular idea or an experiment. Equal amount of FTE from both parties, so from us and from Mosul's side. On average, it was about 8 days per experiment of full-time employee time. And some clearly defined challenges and goals. Getting know-how, experience with the application, and to instill the innovative mindset. We entered a phase where we started to raise awareness of why data science and why blockchain and why all of these other technologies were so important. So we looked at market trends. What is the competition doing? What kind of things are other people doing? How can we make sure that we're not being disrupted by a small startup or by one of the competitors in Europe? We did technology deep dives with the right people in the company. We gave them access to the technology. We had them have hands-on experience with the technologies that we were working on. And at this time it was broad. It was not just data. It was AR, it was VR, blockchain. We made a blockchain to go. How can you make a physical blockchain? So we put together a couple of things, made a machine that people can hold in their hands and really like grasp what a blockchain is, because it's sort of quite fun. The same we did with data. And we showered basically all the right stakeholders with the right amount of information. Up to a point that the stakeholders were our champions. They wanted us to do more. And that's a great place to be in the relationship. Then we entered the playground phase. We had sort of free reign of what can we do with the data. So we were looking at opportunities, looking at different types of aspects of the different business and the operational units they have in the company. We of course did a lot of prototyping. A lot of prototypes didn't make it, a lot of them did make it. That's the whole point of prototyping, as you all well know. And we tested a lot, usually in live environments. So we are constantly proving the concepts using real data with real people. So that's the truck drivers, the managers who manage the car parks where they store like 50,000 cars, or the people who needed to hand over the paperwork when they moved the cars around, and constantly improving the performance of all of the proof of concepts and the MVPs that we built. And of course testing new use cases to see how that will pan out. Now, we have many innovation teams with Mosolve at the moment. This is just like the main streams. We have a lot of different spin-offs as well. And that led to something which is like, it's called the time forecasting tool, time forecasting through data science. And this is the tool that I want to highlight today a bit, because it's all about finding and accessing the right data at the right time and identifying the values of the data and figuring out how the data can be used to increase efficiency, to make the business better. And if you look at the distribution of effort in data analytics, if you just zoom out a little bit, you see that the vast majority of effort goes into preparing the data before it can be used to analyze it, and before you can actually come to results. 70 to 90% preparing, and 10 to 30% is the data analytics itself. And if you look at the method of how to identify the right amount of data, you see that there are a couple of steps. You have identifying the problem, makes sense, preparing the data, where the majority of the time is going, checking for algorithms, different machine learning algorithms that you can use to further analyze the data, then improve the results, and then present it and implement it in already existing ecosystems and software that the clients are using. So the tool that we made is basically taking step 2 from preparing the data, spot check algorithms, improving results, and presenting it and implementing it in a very simple way. So it's very rapid and fast. So what we do is we take existing databases that they have. It could be any. It could be an Excel file, it could be their SAP data, it could be their Salesforce data, it could be whatever you want it to do. We take the data into our data warehouses that we have. We figure out a way which machine learning algorithm is the best for the type of data. And then we create simple dashboards that can help people make decisions better and faster and better informed. And that is the crucial point here, because with a dashboard like this, I've blocked out some of the names. This is an example of forecasting, so predicting the movement of cars to specific regions in Germany. If you can predict where the cars need to be using machine learning and data sets, you can more efficiently plan your routes and schedule your employees and schedule your trucks. And that saves a lot of money. In this case, 17 and 14% for those respective clients. So that's a lot of money for a company that makes hundreds of billions. But the core of these data sets and using the data is about adding real value. And in this case, in this first project that we've done with them, is increasing confidence in the decision-making process. So initially it was that every beginning of the week, all the stakeholders would come together in a room and they would literally decide with pen and paper and some computers on where are our trucks going to go this week. Do we send truck A to Munich, truck B to whatever, Copenhagen or Amsterdam, and doing that for a bunch of trucks. So this led to better decisions, historically this is now, and of course faster decisions, saving a lot of valuable time. So those two things can be measured in money as well. It's the value that counts. Additional values that came with this initial project was the accuracy. They really know now where to send the trucks. A more profitable business, excuse me for the picture, and automation through computerization, so they don't have to meet every week again to figure out where their cars need to be, because it's done automatically behind their backs, accurately. We have a big vision in terms of Mozilf and this data science project and using this tool further, automating the transport scheduling and employee scheduling, and of course then the price optimization and the compound optimization. And this is something that's necessary. The head of digital told me not too long ago that they recently found a bunch of Porsches in one of their compound that apparently been stored there for 7 years and nobody knew that they were there. I mean, how can you lose a bunch of Porsches on a car park, right? So they needed to go back to the Porsche factory and be retrofitted because they were already outdated. I mean, this happens if you have car park with literally hundreds of thousands of cars. Well, not hundreds of thousands, but maybe 60, 70, 80,000 cars as well. So this is something that we are moving towards. So in summary, the data science time forecasting tool gives a lot quicker insights on existing data sets. It's very lightweight and easy to implement, so there's no risk involved in that. The implementation, we can outbound implement it in existing infrastructures that you're already using. And we have no license fees or hidden costs because we built this ourselves so far. We're not licensing it out, it's just a tool that we use to come to more the added value part. Right. In the end, it's, if you look at these innovation partnerships, it's about partnering together and about experimenting together to see what works and what doesn't work. And this data science project is one of many that we have. I already mentioned a few in terms of VR and blockchain, but I'm not going into all of these together. The point is that you start small and you scale really fast. And if you set the pace together, continuously innovating, you have an increased success rate. You build experience with the tools that you use for prototyping, the methods that you have. You learn by doing. You create an innovation culture. And you innovate across business priorities, so you don't have to take one. And this is about the continuous innovation cycle in the partnership that we're doing with Mozilf. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Still following the story, sort of? Yeah? Okay, that's good. We got C-level attention, which was a great marketing stint for us. So Mr. Mozilf himself, he sees really big value in everything that we're doing towards the innovation partnerships and the projects that we're doing. So this was a great compliment that we got from the Mozilf family. And this is just the beginning, to be honest. We're doing this with a couple of other clients as well, and it works. Because the reason it works is if you look at the challenge of digital transformation today, and before I move, who of you are in a company that is currently undergoing like a digital transformation? Only one? That's a bit sad. Two-ish. Okay. Are you transforming other companies in digital transformation? Are you helping them? You are? Yeah? 2, 3, 4. What do you guys do? Is it?
Technical assurance.
Okay, technical assurance. Anyway, so what we see if we talk to our clients, including Mozilf, is that one of the core challenges that they have is to remain relevant in this ever-changing digital landscape. They're sort of afraid that they are disrupted by startups and they need to remain relevant. And it's the notion that digital transformation is not just about hiring a chief digital officer or not just about the new app or not just about using Agile or all of these things. And it's a lot more than going from A to B actually. It's about continuous change. It's about changing continuously and being aware that you need to change continuously. So it's about learning how to transform. And the educational part is very important. If you look at the academia, there's this 10-20-70 rule in terms of how organizations learn. You have 3 parts of that. You have know-how, collaboration, and experience. And can anybody give me a guess on which one of those is 70%, which one is 20%, and which one is 10%? If you put them together, you learn better as an organization. And no takers? No? Don't be shy. Yeah? Highest amount is about for collaboration. Very sorry, that's wrong. So you have 10% know-how, 20% collaboration, and 70% experience. Well, almost, it was pretty close. And this is a proven method. So digital transformation, how we see it, is operational change through know-how, collaboration, and experience. And that is the model that we use and that we operate with. So we take challenges from the 4 quadrants of digital transformation, whether it's digital culture, processes and operations, experience, etc. We inject a bit of know-how with the skills that we have of our developers and our consultants. And we collaborate with clients in terms of partnerships to build experiences over time and build solutions towards a better digital transformation. That is the client side, the client challenges, so how to remain relevant. But for us as a digital agency, there are a couple of challenges today as well, because the phase of digital transformation is changing. On one side, we have that digital transformation remains difficult. You have about 2/3 of CEOs, they don't know what the starting point for digital transformation is. You have about 90% of leaders that they say they are in a digital transformation, but only 4 or 5% can name what it actually is, so they can specify it. And that's a huge gap. Of course, there are people who do it very, very well, but the majority is still sort of struggling. And at the same time, you see that challenges have become a lot more complex, with user expectations are changing, user experiences are changing, and a lot more technical with new technologies like blockchain and data science and augmented reality, virtual reality, and conversational user interfaces like voice and chatbots. So you could say that complexity is increasing. And we see as an agency that embracing the complexity and making it more manageable for our clients is our core challenge at this point in this transformation phase. And this requires different skills. So on one side we have the business consultant with a strategic vision, the dot on the horizon, know where the market is going, know where the company needs to go and what business models to implement. Then we have the experience consultant, the design thinking methodologies, the human-centered design. And last but not least, very important, we have the IT consultant with the detailed data knowledge, because data is sort of the core skill in this. And what we see is that those three consultant types are converging and forming this new type of consultant, which we dubbed the digital architect, which is sort of how we identify ourselves, which is really cool. I know. So what we see is we are not just making products for clients, we are helping clients navigate very complex questions that they will have throughout their digital transformation journey and create solutions for them along the way. So we could be digital architects, but at the same time we are the data architects, answering questions around data, but also transformational architects, answering questions about staying relevant and not being disruptive. So that sort of led to like the three core pillars of what eTexture is doing. And on one side we have the consultancy services, strategic business models, etc. The software factory, we build bespoke software for big clients. And we integrate with partners, and we work with partners like eSpirit, which is a partner why we're here at the Mexico today. So you could say we are a partner for businesses who want to transform, grow, and innovate through data or through digital, how you want to frame it. We do that with a bunch of great clients, predominantly in Germany, predominantly in the automotive industry. But you see that like empty spot, that could be you. Fair enough. But the key point is finding treasures along the way. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, treasures are very, very easy to spot. But most of the time, it requires a bit of digging. And we can help you find those treasures. And thank you very much for your time.